The following is a basic overview on required documentation for hazardous materials rail shipments. A train crew is required to have an acceptable paper copy of the shipping documentation for each car or quantity of a hazardous material prior to accepting a rail car from a customer's facility, another railroad at interchange, or at any other point. Documentation is required while hazardous materials are in transportation, whether it's delivering to a customer's facility, interchange point, or other set-out point. Train crews are responsible to ensure they have all of the required documentation prior to accepting hazardous materials for shipment. This includes proper shipping papers, emergency response information, and a position in train document. Remember, no person may accept any hazardous material for rail shipment without all of these. Documents should be kept in a neat and orderly fashion to ensure they are available in the event of an emergency or inspection. This helps provide accurate information to railroad personnel and first responders about the hazardous materials aboard a train. Documents that are no longer needed should be properly discarded to eliminate the possibility of possessing outdated or inconsistent information. Acceptable shipping papers include railroad-produced documents, customer-produced documents, connecting carriers documents, hand-printed documents, or hazardous waste manifests. Any of these are acceptable as long as it contains the required shipping description entries, are legible, and printed in English. If the document consists of multiple pages, the pages must be numbered consecutively, with the first page indicating the total number of pages. Shipping documents must contain the car initial and number, the total quantity of each hazardous material, along with the UNNA ID number for those materials, proper shipping name, hazard class or division, packing group for each hazardous material if applicable. There must also be an emergency response telephone number listed for each hazardous material. Some hazardous material shipping descriptions may have one or more of these additional required entries. For example, each residue tank car will have an entry indicating residue last contained. Remember, a tank car is considered a residue car unless it has been cleaned and purged. A hot notation is added before a proper shipping name to indicate materials of elevated temperature. RQ, or reportable quantity, indicates the amount of the product released that requires a notification to the National Response Center. Hazardous materials classified as marine pollutants must be entered, as they can pose a risk to aquatic ecosystems if contaminants are released. Hazardous materials classified as a poison or toxic inhalation hazard must be identified and the appropriate hazard zone noted. This is an example of shipping description entries in a vertical format. Items A through H are required entries, and items C through F are referred to as the basic description. Item I refers to additional entries that may appear. This is an example of the same information presented in a horizontal format. Along with shipping papers, the train crew must also ensure they have a copy of the emergency response information for each hazardous material shipment. If the information is not available, do not accept or transport the car. Another document the crew is required to have in their possession is a position in train document that shows the current locations of each hazardous material shipment in the train. If this paper document is not available, the train crew is required to update the documents in their possession or create a hand-printed list showing the position of each hazardous material in the train. If documentation is unavailable or inaccurate, there are 3 ways to correct this. First, if documentation is incorrect, correct it with the proper authorization. Legibly print to record the entries in the appropriate sequence. Second, if documentation is unavailable, obtain the proper shipping paper from the shipper, your supervisor, or other appropriate source. Or contact your supervisor or dispatcher and request the appropriate entries for completing a radio waybill. They will provide the requested entries via radio or telephone for you to complete the waybill form. If the radio waybill form is unavailable, Legibly print the required hazardous material information, including the car's initials and numbers, on a sheet of paper. Keep the radio waybill with the other shipping documents until reaching the final destination or receiving other appropriate shipping papers. And be sure to add the car initial, number, and position on the Position in Train document for each radio bill issued. We provide hazardous material training programs tailored to fit your railroad's operations. A grant from the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration allows us to offer these programs at your location with no cost to your organization. And requesting one of our programs is easy by either completing a brief online request via our website or sending an email request to hmit@shortlinesafety.org. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about this safety topic.